I'm Jacob Courtwright, and this is The Locker Room. What's going on, everybody, and welcome into The Locker Room. We have a bunch of big announcements that we're going to talk about in just a moment. Of course, before we can even get started, the only way to be up to date on these announcements, the only way to be a part of the Locker Room life, right? It's like lifestyle here, all right? Follow us on our social media. The Locker Room Podcast 615 on Instagram, The Locker Room Host Jacob on Facebook, TLR with Jacob on Twitter, and of course TikTok, The Locker Room 22. This episode of The Locker Room is brought to you by FNX Fitness. If you are somebody who is trying to get into shape, wants to lose weight, wants to look good while doing it, and needs the right supplements and nutritions to get it done, go to fnxfit.com. That is fnxfit.com for all of your needs. Use your promo code TLRHOST. That is TLRHOST for 15% off your order. Our gift to you. Ladies and gentlemen, we are officially 1 day away, numero uno days away, from the debut of A Puncher's Chance. I know some of you are probably caught up on how bad my Spanish is. Listen, it's not my fault. I had a teacher that oversaw our Rosetta Stone class and left the answer box at the very bottom and didn't know it for the entire year. So if you don't believe that I cheated that entire year, you're out of your mind. I mean, the answers were literally at the bottom for every test, quiz, everything. So thank you to my teacher, who was not computer savvy whatsoever, for being just so awful at your job sometimes. You really did make high school a lot of fun, or at least senior year when I had to take Spanish. But guys, we're 1 day away. It doesn't get any bigger than this. An hour long. It's about 58 minutes to be exact. So if an hour scares you, it's only 58 minutes, guys, all right? And in all honesty here, this isn't to toot my own horn. This isn't to say I'm the greatest podcaster ever, because clearly I'm not. This show is incredible. It really is. What Steve Hines brings to the table is not only experience in fighting and doing it for so many years, but just the knowledge of being around the fight game for basically his entire life. His dad was involved in pro wrestling. Like, his family, when it comes to UFC and boxing and fighting, like, they know their stuff. So when you hear Steve's comments and you hear him talking throughout the show as my co-host, you're going to be a little bit taken back. I know I was. Listen, I know a lot about the UFC and a lot about fighting. He blows me away. So if you're just like, listen, I only like to listen to you once a week, Jacob. I don't want to hear your voice 2 days this week. Like, I promise you, I let him take the reins a lot more than I took the reins, because this guy knows his stuff. It was a lot of fun. If you are a casual fight fan, I have a strong feeling that if you watch this show and then you invest in this weekend's pay-per-view, you're going to become not only just a much more non-casual fan, but you're going to become a dedicated fan to the UFC, because that is how it started for me. My brother-in-law, Steve Hines, my co-host, he literally got me to watch a couple of fights with him, show me and talk to me about how everything went down. And ever since then, it's been, 8-9 years now, I've been hooked. So I promise you, casual fans, or if you're big UFC fans, watch the debut of A Puncher's Chance tomorrow, 5 o'clock Eastern, located exclusively on our YouTube. There's a full video there with an awesome intro. I'm finishing all of the editing tonight, so right after you wonderful people hopefully listen to this episode, I will be editing the Puncher's Chance full 58-minute episode tonight. Follow us on all of our social medias. If you don't know how to find us on YouTube, it's The Locker Room with Jacob Courtwright. Also, if you follow us on any of our social medias, that link that is sent out every week when a new podcast is posted, that link takes you right to my Linktree page, where all of the information you would ever need about the Locker Room ever existing is located. So make sure you go over there check us out. Steve Hines will be attached to all of my materials that we post tomorrow. So make sure you go follow him, show him some love. He's got my 3 beautiful, 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 wonderful, amazing nieces and my awesome, beautiful sister in that household. So show them some love. Show him some love. He does an incredible job, and I'm telling you, you do not want to miss out. Before we get into it, too, we also have a very, very important announcement that I can't really talk about right now. We have a very special guest getting ready to come on to the show. Once we get the official date and time, I'm going to announce that all over our social media only. So make sure you're following us on there for a very important a guest to be announced very soon. All right, well, let's go ahead and get into the show. Now that I've given you my commercial for why you should listen to A Puncher's Chance, debuting tomorrow, 5 o'clock Eastern, we have probably the most incredible weekend of football that we have had in recent memory based on matchups. Now, I know a lot of people are saying, well, the Bills are involved in this weekend. How the hell can we have a dream matchup with the Bills? Listen, the Bills are a dream matchup. Patrick Mahomes versus Allen. Like, Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes have the 2 most powerful throwing arms in all of football, and they're about to meet on the exact same field. Well, hopefully, we'll talk about that in just a second with Mahomes' concussion protocol. But Lord willing, he stays healthy. We have Tom Brady, Aaron Rodgers, Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes. The Bills making history right now. The Bills having their not only first playoff win in like 20-something years, but having 2 playoff wins in the same year, trying to make their road to the Super Bowl come true. This is going to be a great weekend of football, and that's exactly what we are about to dive into right now, this weekend's football matchups. So first, we've got a quick little update on my bracket. My 2 teams that I projected to go to the Super Bowl are still in play. My bracket, although it's not the greatest, it is doing pretty darn good so far. I'm in a big bracket competition with a lot of friends of mine, and I'm not gonna lie, I think I'm sitting up top right now as the number 1. I've got the Bills Chiefs, which I predicted. That whole side of the bracket I've gotten, I think, 100% right. Where I went wrong was, of course, the one side I didn't think I was gonna go wrong, but nonetheless, we get Bucks Packers, Tom Brady versus Aaron Rodgers. Now, if Tom Brady loses this game, does this do anything to his legacy? No. Tom Brady is already the 45-year-old GOAT. I don't know how old he is, but he's already the GOAT. No matter what happens, if Tom Brady loses, if he wins, does this solidify him any higher? No. At this point, I think he has separated the GOAT conversation so beyond everybody behind him that it's almost unfair. He has that combination that I like in a GOAT, right? When I've talked about who my GOATs are, why they're my GOATs, it is a mixture of statistics with championships. You can't have just one or the other. And I make this argument in basketball all the time. If rings are the only thing that matters, then Bill Russell is the GOAT. Right? If we're only talking about rings, which Tom Brady, of course, has both, but if we're only talking about rings, or we're only talking about statistically, right, then Russell Westbrook is one of the 3 greatest players to ever walk the earth because he averaged triple-double seasons for 3 straight seasons, and Bill Russell's the all-time GOAT because he has the most rings. Like, Tom Brady walks away with the GOAT conversation. Why? It's a mixture of dominating several stat categories, including dominating playoff stat categories, which I think is very important for the GOAT conversation. And of course, this man is just walking around with 6 massive rings on his hands. That is the main reason I have LeBron James as my GOAT, right? If you don't know why I believe that, then I'm telling you, go over to one of the very first episodes I ever did on the Locker Room podcast, Jordan versus LeBron, and I gave you a full breakdown as to who I think the GOAT is and why, and I gave you statistics, I gave you facts, and check that out in another time. But if we're talking about the GOAT here, this does not hurt Tom Brady's legacy. Do you know whose legacy this boosts? Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers, of course, we can all probably agree, is a top 10 quarterback of all time. What does a second championship do with an MVP as well? With the MVP of the Super Bowl as well? This just launches Aaron Rodgers into that top 5 category. Now, I'm not saying he is a guaranteed top 5 quarterback. Some people say he already is a top 5 quarterback. I have Aaron sitting somewhere around with everybody, and this is something I'm actually going to do on the show very soon. But Aaron's probably around like 8 or 9 for me, if I would say just a rough estimate off of the top of my head. So Aaron Rodgers, this propels him to a top 5 spot, especially in my book. Not even close. Without a doubt, he's a top 5 quarterback. He arguably gets into that top 3. Now, for me, it's going to be very hard to go against Peyton Manning and Tom Brady. Tom Brady, of course, the all-time GOAT. Peyton Manning, very, very close to that GOAT conversation. There's some other names I would mix in there. I'm not going to do all that today. But this game, I think, is more important for Green Bay than it is for Tom Brady and Tampa Bay. Like, the big deal here is what? Tom Brady takes a team that hasn't won a Super Bowl, takes them to the Super Bowl. They were trash last year with Jameis Winston at quarterback, and he single-handedly alone propels them to a Super Bowl and wins it. Great. Would that be incredible feat? Yes. Would that make Tom Brady just even more incredible? Absolutely. Would it be well-deserved? Yes. This is a good team that's just struggled for several years. Like, people act like they were one of the worst teams in all of football. Like, their offense and their defense was not that bad. They were no Cleveland Brown of the last 5 years. They were no Jacksonville Jaguars, right? So, yes, it would be an incredible feat. But I think something that would be more incredible is not only Aaron Rodgers beating the GOAT to get to the Super Bowl, but Aaron Rodgers winning that Super Bowl. This is going to be an incredible matchup of an all-time GOAT versus an all-time great. And I think this game is going to go in Green Bay's favor. I'm not going against my pick here. I'm not going to call an audible and change it. I truly believe that Green Bay is the best team in all of football right now, although the Bills have a very tough case as to who's playing the best football right now. While it would be awesome to see Tom Brady capture his 7th ring, take a team that nobody would have ever expected Tom to not only end up at, but lead that team to a Super Bowl in his later years of his career. But this is more important for Aaron Rodgers than it ever will be for Tom Brady. That's why I'm going Green Bay. Now let's move on to another fantastic matchup. Now I know a lot of people, when they hear me say the Bills is an incredible matchup, are probably cringing. They're like, dude, they just got their first playoff win in like 25 years or whatever. Like, why are you hyping up the Bills? I love this Bills team. This Bills team is built for a Super Bowl. Hands down. All year, I have said, and you can go back, I'm on record, if Josh Allen can become accurate with the football, and he's not just a one-dimensional, which is I can bomb the ball 80 yards and I can run. Like, if he doesn't become just that one-dimensional guy who can only do one throw and only do one play on offense, then he's going to be not only a dynamic quarterback, but he's going to project himself all the way up into the top 5 in the NFL. He's playing the last 5 weeks of the season, he played not only top 5, he played top 3. In the playoffs, while he's played very good defenses, he is still up there as one of the best quarterbacks in all of these playoffs. He sure looks a hell of a lot better than Drew Brees, which, God bless him, is probably going to retire, and we'll talk about that, I'm sure, at another time, because I just don't want to see Drew Brees limp through and be not good for another whole season. I feel like it's damaging to his legacy. But I like what I see from Josh Allen. If Josh Allen can maintain what he's been doing, this is going to be a great game. And what Josh Allen has been doing so well, taking care of the football and game managing. He's got a great defense. He's got a good offensive line. He's got horrible running backs right now. Their running game is atrocious. They have turned themselves into a full air raid offense. This is the Oklahomas, the Texas Techs of the world. This is, classic. We are going to drop back and throw the ball 68 times. This is a Mike Leach run offense in the NFL right now. So the running backs are bad, but what Josh Allen has done so well is just maintain control of the football, not making stupid throws, not over-forcing the football, and letting his defense have his back. That is why I love this Buffalo Bills team. Now, what's important to know for this matchup is Patrick Mahomes available for this game? If not, this is going to be an easy Bills win. No Mahomes, no worries for the Bills, right? This is going to be a walk-off 2-3 touchdown win if Patrick Mahomes is not playing in this football game. But if Patrick Mahomes is playing, if he's fully healthy, if he's fully aware, then, he has a foot injury along with apparently he has a nerve in his neck that he hurt in the last game. If he's fully healthy, this is going to be probably the most entertaining game. It's hard to even say that because you have Tom Brady and Aaron Rodgers. This is going to be a very entertaining game, and it's going to be a lot of fun to watch. So I really hope we get the best of the best. Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, Tom Brady versus Aaron Rodgers in head-to-head matchups. You get everybody at their best, bringing their A games. Listen, these teams deserve to put on a show for the fans, and I really think they're going to deliver here. So I'm super excited. I'm not going against the Buffalo Bills. I do not like what I've seen from Kansas City's defense. They don't pressure the quarterback enough. Although they've had games where they can, they have not pressured them enough. On the back end, I think Tyrann Mathieu is a monster, probably has the best instincts of anybody in all of football on the defensive side. That is not a joke. That is not just me speaking out of my ass. If you watch his interception last game, if you watch how he plays football, I've never seen anybody with not only the speed to recover, but somebody who plays basically baiting football, as we like to call it. Baiting football is a cornerback or a safety or even a linebacker at this case, who baits the quarterback to do what he wants him to do. And that's a hard game to play because there's usually a quarterback on the other side trying to bait you back. And the best quarterbacks in the entire league have got by Tyrann Mathieu. So that is the dynamic side, and he's going to make life very tough for these wide receivers if Josh Allen is not careful with the football. That being said, I fully expect Josh Allen to be safe. They have the better defense, I would say, by a pretty decent margin besides the back end, even though they have a phenomenal back end as well. I just don't like the amount of defensive line I don't like the defensive line for Kansas City this year. Not generating enough pass rushing, not even generating enough what I call quarterback insecurity. Basically, they're not even getting near the quarterback on almost 40 to 42% of their plays. So if that's the case, quarterbacks are going to have clean pockets to just launch the ball out of. And that is why you saw a tough game this past weekend for Kansas City. And while they almost lost to the Browns, if the Browns would have not been the Browns. I told you what the Browns were going to do. They go away from the run. Why? Because the run's successful. And the Browns said, well, we can't be successful here, so let's go away from the run. That is what the Browns do. They are the Jacksonville Jaguars of the North. Now, I do believe they've gained my respect, guys. I'm not going to continue to call them the Jacksonville Jaguars of the North. They've gained my respect. I thought Baker had a pretty decent game. I thought there were some missed calls here and there. But listen, this is a young team that's going to be a lot of fun to watch in the future. Now, off the Browns train, because I could give less crap about the Browns right now because they're out of it. This is going to be this could be, if Mahomes is playing, my favorite game on Sunday. I know that might sound crazy, but I'm telling you, watch out for this game. It could steal game of the week if we have fully healthy teams on both sides. Now let's move over to this. I actually am going to stay here and talk about Drew Brees for just a second. While it's fresh on everybody's minds, while last Sunday's game is fresh on everybody's minds, I think I'm just going to go ahead and do it. I was going to push it to a later date. We do have a lot to get to today, but if we don't get to it, hey, we've got more shows definitely coming in the future. We've got a lot in the works, so I'll save my rambling for another time. Let's talk about Drew Brees for just a second. You can't tell me, and there's several of you out there that have, you can't tell me that Drew Brees is capable of another NFL season. You can't. There's nothing that you can show me on film from Sunday's football game that would say Drew Brees has the capability of playing another year at a successful rate. Good grief, can't talk all of a sudden. And I say the word successful, and I emphasize that. Why? Because Anybody can go out there and be a decrepit piece of crap and be a horrible football player. We've seen that happen on numerous occasions. How many times have we seen old washed-up quarterbacks, Brett Favre in his last couple years in the league, right? We see old washed-up quarterbacks who just refuse to hang up the helmet, and we watch them slowly decline into the ground, and it taints people's thoughts. It taints people's feelings towards that athlete. Hell, I would probably say the NBA is the most notorious sport for athletes that just stick around a little too long. Listen, I like Dirk Nowitzki. I think Dirk Nowitzki is not only an incredible player, but he's one of the best guys. Paul Westphal, may he rest in peace. I talked to him about Dirk Nowitzki, and he said he's one of the greatest guys he's ever had the pleasure of coaching or being around. But Dirk Nowitzki played 4 years, 5 years too long. Dwayne Wade played 3 years too long. Kobe Bryant, may he rest in peace as well. Kobe Bryant played 2 years too long, right? In the NBA, it's a little bit different because it's not as heavy of a contact sport. So physically, while these players could still go out on the court and it's not going to damage them further like the NFL, what does it do to us when we see now Kobe went out, a course of top as anybody ever could, dropping 62 points on his final game. But I think it was on like 79 shots. I'm exaggerating here, but for real. So we see this in athletes. We see them deteriorate. We see these athletes stick around a year too long, 2 years too long, and it diminishes what that athlete is, what that athlete has done. Now, I'm not saying I diminish what they do, but we as fans, if we really think about it, do we look at Drew Brees the same that we did 4 years ago? Do we look at, Kobe Bryant's a bad example. I'll lay him to rest. But do we look at certain athletes like Dwayne Wade in his last 4 years? Do we look at him as the same Dwayne Wade that won championships? No. Why? Because instead of athletes going out up top of their game, we as fans, we're so selfish and we drag them into the ground because we want them to stay, we want them to stay, we want them to stay. But then the last 4 years, they're atrocious, and then it taints how we think about that athlete. What Drew Brees did on Sunday tainted how I felt about Drew Brees. Listen, Drew Brees has a legacy, like with the greats. He is up there with some of the great quarterbacks of all time. He has several 5,000-yard passing seasons. Like, this guy is one of the best quarterbacks to ever throw a football on a field. But on Sunday, does this look like the Drew Brees that I think could have ever been in the GOAT conversation? No. Listen, Drew Brees, if you want to look at Drew Brees' numbers, and that's why I say the statistics and championships have to matter, because if you look at Drew Brees statistically, he is arguably the second or third greatest quarterback of all time. In all seriousness, go look at Drew Brees' numbers, you would be blown away. That is why I do not like when athletes like this stick around and run themselves into the ground. 4 years ago, if he retired up top of his game, hell, 3 years ago, if he retired at the top of his game, well, I say the top of his game, he was playing at basically the highest level he could ever play at for the rest of his life 3 years ago. If he would have walked away at the end of that season after having a great season, after leading his team, after losing in the playoffs, although it was devastating, there's nothing more he could have done. If he would have just walked away then, I feel we would have Drew Brees in a much higher light than we all do right now. Watching Drew Brees have pitiful outside the number throws. Watching Drew Brees have pitiful over the middle throws. Watching him throw just bad interceptions. It's just too much for a legend to handle anymore. I think Drew knows this as well. You saw the tears in his eyes. You saw him turn around and look at the stadium one last time. Drew Brees, although he loves the game, has to walk away. Now, I know I've talked a lot about retirement in these last couple of weeks, but Kyrie Irving should retire for a completely different reason. Drew Brees needs to step away, savor what he has left of his integrity from the football play, what players think of him. He had a decent season, although he was hurt throughout the entire year. Drew Brees needs to walk away at the end of this year with his head held high And quite honestly, in a few years, in 6-7 years, we might be talking about Drew Brees in a top 5 quarterback situation because statistically he's right there. But there it is. I said my piece. I think Drew Brees should walk away. He had a hell of a career. He had a beautiful moment with Tom Brady on Sunday, even though Tom Brady threw a touchdown to his son. This is just, a joke here, but I don't even know that Drew Brees could have made that throw any more accurate or better. So I don't know if that was Tom Brady being nice or Tom Brady just being an enormous douchebag and saying, like, look, I'll even throw a perfect spiral back corner to your son in front of you just to rub in the fact that we just beat you. But let's go ahead and move on to some NBA. Okay, so back by popular demand. I know it's very early in the season, of course, in the NBA. We're going to do our 5 most dangerous teams in the NBA. 5 teams that, A, you don't want to be seeing on a Tuesday night, and B, 5 most dangerous teams to really push towards and or win the NBA championship. At number 1, I don't know why you guys are surprised. Like, quite honestly. Don't be surprised by this. Of course, it's the Los Angeles Lakers. Why? They have the greatest player in the entire NBA still on his A game, right? I don't think he's dropped off one bit. Most people say that he has. And then those people are proven wrong when LeBron James does what he does, not only in the playoffs, but winning championships. Nonetheless, LeBron James, the best player in the NBA, and Anthony Davis, a top 5 guy in the NBA right now. The Los Angeles Lakers not only beefed up their bench from last year, but they can now score with the best of them. Right now, of course, they sit up top the West at 11-4. They had a heartbreak loss last night to Steph Curry, but Steph Curry was incredible in that game. It's Steph Curry. I love seeing this kind of competitiveness. I love seeing Steph Curry pull from 37 feet away. Like, that's just who Steph Curry is. But what I love about this Los Angeles Lakers team, and what I think is going to propel them not only back to the championship, but to repeat, is the fact that they've added pieces that can take the ball away from LeBron and AD and do something with it. I believe, and this is up for debate for a lot of people, but I believe that Dennis Schroeder was the best pickup the Los Angeles Lakers made this entire offseason. Now, they have a lot more that we're going to talk about, but what Dennis Schroeder has done, not only is he a runner-up for 6th man of the entire NBA last year, but he can put the ball in the basket, create his own shots. He can hit open jump shots. He can spot up and shoot if LeBron wants to go ahead and take the point guard position. And he brings a defensive presence that they needed at the point guard position last year. What Dennis Schroeder does so well is Dennis Schroeder, A, takes no crap from anybody. And I like that dog in him because the Los Angeles Lakers last year were made up of 2 dogs. LeBron James and Anthony Davis, as of late, came on as a dog. I would put Rajon Rondo actually in that category as well. When I say dogs, I mean people that get it done when it needs to get done. They had 3 dogs. This year, they have a team full of dogs. They took what the Los Angeles Clippers built, which was a team full of dogs, in quotation marks. I call them puppies. But they took that building philosophy of we need to be a bunch of dogs, and they used it against the Clippers and said, well, don't worry. Not only will we be a team full of dogs, we'll be a team of scoring dogs. Dogs that could literally put up 20 and 25 points a night if they really needed to. We saw Montrezl Harrell dropping 15 and 16 points a game. Montrezl Harrell says goodbye to the Los Angeles Clippers, joins the Lakers. What does he bring them? Opportunities on the offensive and defensive side of the basketball. He's not only, everybody trashes him for being a poor rim protector. He is statistically a very good rim protector. But what does he do so well? He rebounds the basketball and gets offensive boards, giving his team more and more opportunities. Averaging almost 3 offensive rebounds a game this year is phenomenal, even though we are only 15 games into the season. And then what does he do best? Crash the glass and put up points when he needs to as well. He's a great scoring, I say big man in quotation marks because he's not a big man per se. He's more of a 4 guard, but he does a great job of being the firecracker off the bench that can get them 17 and 11 every single night, and he also plays with an edge. Those 2 players alone really set the Los Angeles Lakers apart. Now, Anthony Davis coming on as of late last year has projected the Los Angeles Lakers to the very tip top of the NBA, and that's why they sit at my number one. The Anthony Davis that showed up in the playoffs last year is the Anthony Davis that when LeBron retires will take over this Lakers team and still keep them a formidable opponent for the very near future. So, of course, I'm not going to talk about the greatness of LeBron and AD too much because we all know that at face value. But what this team did, adding players like Wesley Matthews, somebody who shoots a career-high 36%, almost 39% in some seasons, a game from the three-point line, who's also a very good defender. Alex Caruso, they bring the bald angel back, and he plays at a very high level. Although he's not a great scorer, he's a very good defender of the basketball, and he likes to crash the offensive glass. He's a pretty good passer. Morris, another dog, somebody that can go guard somebody on the block if he has to. He can guard all five positions. You have somebody like that you can throw at LeBron, or not at LeBron. Throw at Kawhi Leonard or Paul George or whoever else that you need to throw him at in the playoffs. They have a team full of guys that are not only all bought into the same thing, but a team full of guys that are now dogs, which is something they needed last year. They got away with it for the simple fact that LeBron and AD were so spectacular that they didn't have to be dogs. Now, I'm not a big fan of Kyle Kuzma, but Kyle Kuzma does bring them a lot of offense off the bench. I think he's averaging close to like 11 or 12 points a game. I mean, they've got pieces galore on this team. I can't even forget Latavius Caldwell-Pope, who honestly was probably the biggest show out in the playoffs last year, hitting big shot after big shot. They retain him. This is my runaway top team right now in the NBA. My second favorite team right now, the Philadelphia 76ers. Now, this might also sound strange to some people. A healthy Joel Embiid is arguably the second or third best player in the NBA. He's unstoppable. When is the last time we've seen a big man this dominant in the last, let's say, 10 years? Since Steph Curry really, reinvented the NBA and made everybody have to shoot 35 three-point shots a game, otherwise you're not going to keep up. He is being able to affect the game as a big man, dropping 45 here, dropping 37 here, dropping 29 here, 32 here. The 76ers are an interesting piece for me here. First off, you get Doc Rivers, who I'm not a big Doc Rivers fan. I don't think Doc Rivers is the greatest coach ever. I think he's a decent coach, but I think he's good for this group. So you add Doc Rivers, which is better coaching. You have a healthy Joel Embiid playing at the top of his game, who right now is playing as the second or third best player in all of the NBA. You get Ben Simmons, who although offensively is atrocious and had a horrible air ball the other night, is an incredible defender from the point guard position and a very skilled passer. And the addition of Seth Curry, who's not only the leader in three-point percentage thus far this year, but is beating his own brother at it, is pretty remarkable. I'm a big Seth Curry fan. I think Seth Curry does a lot of the little things that, now clearly Steph doesn't have to because he's Steph Curry, but Seth does a lot of the little things that keeps him on the court in big moments. He's a very good defender. He likes to get in the passing lanes, and then he's just a knockdown shooter. I mean, these Currys are just knockdown scorers of the basketball from the three-point range. You will never see anything like this as long as you live. Tobias Harris, while I'm not sold that Tobias Harris is the guy that everybody says he is or used to be, Tobias Harris is a very nice piece, and I think the addition of Danny Green really opens up the 76ers team to have offense. Now, I'm not a big Danny Green guy either. I think Danny Green's one of those guys that we talked about earlier. He has the Drew Brees effect a little bit on me. He's somebody that, while he can be very good in times, he has tended to shrink in the bigger moments as of late. And I don't know if that's age, if that's nerves, or whatever it is. But Danny Green is still a decent piece here. When you have Joel Embiid playing at this level, I've got them at my number 2 right now. Now, if Joel Embiid gets hurt, if Joel Embiid starts getting nicked up and missing 3 and 4 games here or there, I'm out. I'm done on him. I will never put my faith back in the 76ers again. But as of right now, they are my second favorite team right now. At number 3, I've got to go with the Brooklyn Nets. And here is why. The addition of James Harden has formally changed what these Nets are. I really hope, in all honesty, I don't mean this in a mean way, I really hope that Kyrie Irving does not show back up. Kyrie Irving will only ruin what the Nets have. What the Nets have with James Harden and Kevin Durant is a championship-level team. Now, I don't believe it's a team that can beat the Lakers, as they gave away their entire depth. Karis LeVert was a massive hit. Spencer Dinwiddie went down with a torn ACL. Jared Allen might be the worst loss for them. They lost their rim protector, their rebounder, their second chance guy. They basically shipped everybody away. They shipped their entire future away to get James Harden. I don't believe Kyrie Irving fits in this situation. If Kyrie Irving decides, hey, I want to come back and play basketball, my first priority would be to move Kyrie Irving to another team in order to add depth to your bench. While having 3 superstars worked out for some people, look at the Miami Heat as the biggest prime example. The Miami Heat had a very hard time rising to the top. They were only 2 championships out of 4 tries in Miami. Why? Because it takes a lot out of a player to sacrifice so much from his game that the team will be successful. Kyrie Irving is not a I'm going to sacrifice guy. James Harden is not a I'm going to sacrifice guy. Kevin Durant is, and that is one of my biggest things that I love about about Kevin Durant, is he has always been willing to take a back seat. Why? Because he is one of the greatest scorers to ever walk this earth. He's a walking 30-point every single night with basically zero effort. This team constructed with James Harden right now is better than this team adding Kyrie Irving and trying to be a 3-superstar team. It's never going to work. You can't convince me that it will work. I don't like it. First-year head coach Steve Nash needs to make hard decisions, and those hard decisions are going to have to be sitting down with your superstars and saying, hey, Kyrie, you're not going to be the point guard. You're going to be the 2. James Harden, you're going to be the point guard. Kevin Durant, you're going to be whoever we need you to be, and you're going to have to, give up half your shots. That's not going to happen. We've also never seen a team that has been able to put up, 25, 26 shots between 3 different superstars. That's never going to happen as well. I mean, we're never going to see a team that's able to share the ball that much and shoot that many times between your 3 superstars. It's literally never happened, and it never will. This team with James Harden, though, James Harden playing the point makes this team a very tough out, in not only in the playoffs, but even in the championship. Although I don't feel their bench is strong at all, 2 superstars like James Harden and Kevin Durant's really hard to come by. 2 of the greatest scorers in NBA history. And if you keep James Harden at this point guard position, he's led the league in assists before. James Harden can pass the basketball. I think this team could be very dynamic and could be very dangerous moving forward throughout these playoffs and throughout the NBA season. I do not like the addition of Kyrie Irving. I think that's my one catalyst here. It's kind of like the 76ers here. If Kyrie Irving returns to this team, I don't know that I'm in on the Brooklyn Nets. Because at that point, it just turns into a circus, and I'm not in for the circus, right? I'm not on that Britney level, right? For those of you who don't know, she has a song, Circus. Anyways, I'm showing my age here a little bit, but I'm not in on that, and I will have no part of it. Moving on to team number 4, though, a team that they just beat, the Milwaukee Bucks. Now, here's the deal. I do not like the Milwaukee Bucks. More specifically, I do not like the Milwaukee Bucks of last season. Now, this season could be very different. Now, they did give away some of their players that they added Drew Holiday, which was a massive pickup. I really like Drew Holiday here. Drew Holiday is one of the most dynamic, underrated guards in the entire league. They gave away a lot of their depth. They don't have as much size as they used to. But the one factor here is, of course, Giannis Antetokounmpo, Chris Middleton. Those 2 guys now adding somebody like a Drew Holiday who can score the basketball basically at will could make this team very interesting down the stretch. Now listen, you are not going to get nothing but Giannis Antetokounmpo praises from me. I have said this, go back and listen to any podcast I talk about the NBA. Giannis must develop a consistent outside to mid-range shot. Otherwise, Giannis Antetokounmpo is going to be washed up in 4 years. And when I say washed up, he's going to be somebody that when it comes to playoff time, he will never be respected. He will never be representing the Bucks in any sort of championship game because he's going to be 38 points a game, but when it comes to playoff time, he'll have 22, 23, and they will just push him out to the 3-point line or mid-range and watch him brick threes all night long and build themselves a nice little new house to celebrate their win in, right? That is all that this is going to be if the Bucks do not get Giannis to develop. But the addition of Drew Holiday makes things a lot better for Giannis. Why? You have a dynamic point guard that can maintain not only the ball, but can score if need be. What they struggled so much with last year is while George Hill's a decent player, George Hill is not only older in age, but George Hill's not dynamic with the basketball. Eric Bledsoe is not dynamic with the basketball. Those are decent pieces. They're not dynamic. Drew Holiday is a dynamic scorer and handler of the basketball, and I really think that tandem of him, Middleton, and Giannis Antetokounmpo, I just like saying his name. It's like that scene in Elf where he says Francisco several times. That's exactly what this is like right now. But Giannis Antetokounmpo, this dynamic could be what the Bucks were missing last year. I still believe the Bucks are 1 or 2 pieces away. If they would have picked up somebody like a Seth Curry along with a Drew Holiday, I think this team becomes a lot scarier. But I still believe they're 1 or 2 pieces away from really punching their championship hopes and dreams and winning it. But this team is very good, and this team is the only team, quite honestly, that can really challenge the Brooklyn Nets in a lot of different ways, and I think they're a nightmare matchup for the Brooklyn Nets. Now, the Nets just beat them on a buzzer beater by Kevin Durant, and that was simply from just bad defense from the Bucks. Get this into a playoff situation. If they can continually develop this year, the Bucks can with their repertoire. The Bucks are going to be a very interesting team to come out of the Eastern Conference. And last but not least, my final team out of my 5, I would have to put the Los Angeles Clippers here. Now, many of you know I hate the Los Angeles Clippers. I will never like the Los Angeles Clippers, and it's mainly for the simple fact that I cannot stand Paul George, and I cannot stand Kawhi Leonard. I think many of you know that based on all my videos that I posted and all the breakdowns I did during the playoffs last year. But I've got to give it to them. They're going to be a tough out. Well, I say that until they run into the Nuggets in the second round. But the Los Angeles Clippers, at least this year, are playing at a much higher pace. They're playing at a much higher level, and they're getting Kawhi Leonard to buy into playing back-to-backs. Paul George is having a very elite year, which by all means he should be, because Paul George has been a complete crap show the last 3 playoffs he's ever been in. Paul George wants to be respected. You know, the regular season, while it's great that he's balling out, I don't give a damn what you do during the regular season. It's all about the playoffs. So this team has yet to be proven in the playoffs, and it's yet to be seen what team will show up in the playoffs. So for that sake, that is why I have the Los Angeles Clippers all the way back at 5. A lot of people have them at 2 or 3. I'm all the way back at 5 on this team. What I like about this team is also their weaknesses. Paul George and Kawhi Leonard bring just, not only insane wing defense and scoring power, but they bring just tough matchups for anybody on the other side. There's not many teams in this league that have 2 dynamic guards that can make life a living hell for those 2 guys. That can make them not only have to play hard defense, but then in return have to outscore them on the other side. Teams that can make them do that are teams that beat them. Jamal Murray was able to take advantage of them. We saw Luka Doncic be able to take advantage of them. We've seen Devin Booker be able to take advantage of them. We see younger guards that make them have to work on both ends of the basketball really be the Achilles heel for this team. So this team said they got rid of their problems. They got rid of Montrezl Harrell. They're happy with the team. They put in Serge Ibaka, who, while I like Serge Ibaka and I think he's a decent piece here, Serge Ibaka is just Serge Ibaka. He's going to get you 11 and 9 every game, maybe 1 or 2 blocks. That's about it, right? That's all they need him for anyways. Zubac is coming off the bench, so they've got a little bit of size. They lost Landry Shamet, which I think sneakily, I think that's the word, is a big loss for them. They lost a lot of their depth off the bench as well. So the big concern here is Kawhi Leonard and Paul George going to be the answer, or are they going to be the answer for this team down the stretch? Can they play the back-to-backs to keep them in the 2nd, 3rd, 1st seed? Can they put in the effort every single game? Can they build a repertoire? Can they build team chemistry? The problems that they all had last year with this team. That is yet to be seen. Patrick Beverley, while I love his energy and I love Patrick Beverley's facial expressions, he doesn't really do much for this team. They really don't have another point guard to back up this team. I think that's the biggest thing they're missing. So they've got a lot of holes, and they are the most flawed out of these 5 teams that I've talked about. The Clippers are the most flawed, and not only offensively, but defensively. While they have 2 guys that can fill up the bucket in Paul George and Kawhi Leonard, we have never seen consistency from those guys throughout an entire NBA season. We have never seen consistency throughout the playoffs. And for everybody that wants to say that Kawhi Leonard's a top 3 player in the NBA, I dare you to go back and look at what Kawhi Leonard did not only last year, but what Kawhi Leonard has done in the fourth quarters as of late. He's been atrocious. So they've got a lot to prove, but I've got to put the Clippers back here at 5. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that is all she wrote. But listen, Linda, listen. You need to make sure that you have your notification set for a puncher's chance tomorrow. You do not want to miss out. I promise you that. You need to make sure that you are following our social media because we have some major things coming your way that you do not want to miss out on. We have some big giveaways coming up. We have a ton of things coming up that you do not need to miss out on. Follow us on our social media. Stay up to date. Watch A Puncher's Chance tomorrow, 5 o'clock Eastern. It is incredible. I promise you're going to enjoy it. If you like this episode, share it with a friend. Show some love for the locker room. The locker room will show
I'm Jacob Court.
Locker room faithful, as always, have a great day, and I'm out.